Hello everyone, wherever and whenever this video is finding you. I hope you're doing well. Something big came out last week, a couple days ago maybe, that I wanted to go over with everybody here. This is the 2018 Joint Economic Report from United States Congress. And if we look down here, we can see the authors of it. So from the House, we have Paulson, Schweikart, Cornstalk, LaHood, Rooney, Handel, Maloney, Delaney, Adams, Baer. And from the Senate, we had Lee, Cotton, Sass, Portman, Cruz, Cassidy, Heinrich, Klobuchar, Peters, and Hassan, who authored this report. And these are recommendations to the president on the economy based on the House Economic Committee. The House Joint Economic Committee of Congress. So come down here and we have table of contents. Let's take a look at this. Chapter 1, Causes of the Weak Economic Recovery. The cause of the weak economic recovery is the Federal Reserve and the manipulated money supply that we get to use here in America. That is the biggest contributing factor. All these other things, yeah, that's well and good, but the Federal Reserve is where the heart of the problem is at. Chapter 2, Macroeconomic Outlook. And a whole bunch of stuff in there. Chapter 3, the benefits of tax reform. Hopefully everyone got a little boost in their tax refund this year. That's always a good thing. Chapter 4 is regulation. Let's see here. Markets are the engine of economic growth. Markets can deal with economic challenges containing growth of regulations long term. Those all sound pretty good. I'm going to read those here a little bit later today. That's not what I want to talk about right now, though. Chapter 5, an education and training system worthy of American workers. Elementary and secondary education, post-secondary education, that all looks interesting too. Maybe I'll take a look at that and go over it later. Infrastructure. Chapter 7 is U.S. trade on the global economy. Chapter 8, healthcare. Chapter 9, the blockchain. Building a secure future, one blockchain at a time. That's right. In the official Congress recommendations for the economy going to the president, one whole chapter is dedicated to the blockchain and everything it can do. That's what I want to look at today. And also, I tweeted out incorrectly. It's only about 10% of the whole report. I got a whole bunch of these endnotes that printed out with it when I said it was 20%, so that was incorrect. Oh, so we also have minority views that are attached to this report, and basically the Democrats. I have to play this while I go over this, sorry. The Republican tax law leaves American families behind. Republicans undermine Americans' health care. Republicans shift responsibility to states and the private sector. That's horrible if you want to be a communist or socialist or control the whole economy. Chapter 4, Trump's regulatory agenda puts special interests ahead of workers. And that's about what I think of this. So I can stop this now. That's enough. Let's go. Oh. Let's go up here to the blockchain section and take a look at that, see what it says. So chapter 9 starts on page 211 of the PDF, page 201 of the report. Let's see what the government has to say about the blockchain. Providing cybersecurity and many other potential benefits. Yes, that's what it does. These new innovations and markets present America's regulatory and legislative institutes with unique challenges. Yes, they do. Revolutionizing the world's digital landscape and economy. Yes, and revolutions are not good for the old, corrupt, entrenched powers. And so it goes over a big background, and they actually do a fairly good job of describing some of the good things cryptocurrencies can do. I talk about a lot of this stuff in my other videos and Steam It blogs and all that. So a lot of this stuff is nothing new. The year of cryptocurrency is what they're calling 2017. And taking a historical point of view, I think we're going to look back at 2017 and say that was the top of the very first inning of the cryptocurrency boom. We're just getting started. The government's trying to figure out how they're going to tax and regulate it. And it looks like they're going to try to keep their hands off as much as you could reasonably expect, which is good. And there's no way they can regulate the whole thing. A lot of it is decentralized open source software that they have no real ability to stop. So good for them for realizing that and not trying to be too draconian here. And they go over some basic stats. Like I said, there's a pretty good history of cryptocurrency, descriptions of what it does, and 6,700% return on Ethereum, I think, last year. Yeah, that's what it does. 1,000% for Bitcoin. That's all just going to grow this year, too. They're just getting started, like I say. And so they compare cryptocurrencies and other digital assets that these cryptocurrencies are backing. They compare them to internet companies in the 1990s. I think that's pretty accurate. There was a huge economic boom with the internet and all the options and efficiencies it brought. Cryptocurrencies are going to bring an even bigger boom than that over the next few years as they get implemented into the economy. So some more interesting stuff here they're talking about. And it's pretty telling what they do talk about in this report here. These are going to be the official cryptocurrencies they push and try to focus their regulations and taxation on. Ripple, Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin. Those are all going to be the cryptocurrencies the Wall Street crowd and the regulators have their fingerprints on the most. That's why it's good to be reading these things. You get a little insight into what they're looking at and how they're working. And you can plan your own finances and investment strategies and all that accordingly. So we don't need to read all that. You guys, I'm sure, know what cryptocurrencies are, how to mine them, all that stuff. They're not quite sure whether they're going to regulate them as a currency or an asset yet. That's all stuff that's still up in the air and we got to pay attention to. At this point, many prominent economists do not believe cryptocurrencies fit the standard definition of money. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen considered Bitcoin a highly speculative asset that is not considered legal tender. And that's all well and good. It is highly speculative. It is highly volatile. And when the whole crypto economy settles down and gets adopted fully, it will be stable then. Until then, it's going to keep on growing. So you can store your assets in the highly inflationary and decreasing in value US dollar, or you can store your assets, or at least some of them, in deflationary and highly appreciating assets like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin, EOS. There's a whole bunch of them here for you to choose from. And this is still the very early innings of how they're going to get implemented, used, and increase in value. So now is a great time to be getting involved with this whole digital new economy. And they go over some problems here with Bitcoin. They acknowledge it doesn't have the volume or speed to take over the mainstream monetary role. But there are other cryptocurrencies that move faster and that do have the volume and throughput to take care of that. So it's all coming. These problems are being solved and worked on and solutions implemented as we speak. Extreme volatility in the dollar price of cryptocurrencies is something you need to be aware of and okay with if you're going to get involved with it. Bitcoin was 20,000 a couple months ago, and it's been down to 6,000 recently. So it drops and rises very violently. Get used to it if you're going to be involved in this over the next few years. Don't let it affect your view of cryptocurrency or what they do. The price is not what gives them their power. The abilities and technology and utility these cryptocurrencies provide is what gives them their value, and that we haven't even realized or really appreciate what that full value is yet. So they take a little view on initial coin offerings here, and they're going to, anything that is issued before the platform and blockchain is released is going to be considered a security, most likely. This is all still being developed, but from the way they describe it and the way they're talking about it in this report, which is from the legislators of America. So this is their official stance on it as of right now. They're going to call ICOs that are released and sold prior to the platform being released securities. They're going to be regulated as securities. When a platform is released and publicly available, those same tokens are going to transition into being classified as commodity or an asset. So, some big information in here that should just validate all the reasons people are so excited about the blockchain. PricewaterhouseCoopers does some research into initial public offerings, and they're estimating between 4 and 7% of the capital raised, plus an additional 4.2 million in accounting costs are required for traditional public offerings on the stock market. On top of that, between 1 and 2 million annually to maintain the status of a company as a publicly listed entity. That's a massive cost any company needs to take on if they're wanting to get public funding and be traded publicly. Over $6 million, and between 1 and 2 annually just on accounting. That's a huge cost burden. And all of these, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have no choice but to flow through the Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley's, JP Morgan sort of institutions to comply with all this stuff. So in contrast to all that, millions and millions of dollars and millions of maintenance dollars just for accounting a year in the traditional system. The estimated cost of an ICO would be 3 months of development time and approximately $60,000 to receive public funding. A third of this cost is in legal fees also. Once up and running, these platforms continue to raise funding for upgrades and maintenance through either transaction fees, appreciation of tokens, or donations. During 2017, developers launched hundreds of ICOs and investors realized their potential. Most new tokens utilized the Ethereum blockchain to launch their tokens and execute their code. And we can see why. From millions and millions of dollars in very restricted access to $60,000 or less and almost no barrier to access or to entry. That's a huge efficiency, and that's a huge reason why the blockchain is such a big deal. Again, basically a 99% efficiency increase from traditional system and the millions of dollars it costs and all the time to the way the blockchain can do it. That's going to be a huge tool for regular and small business to get additional funding and allow public ownership of their company, even restricted ownership to the community or to the location they're working in. It can be done in a lot of different ways, and it can be done efficiently and cheaply in a lot of different ways now. That's a big deal. And so 2017, there was an explosion. A whole bunch of money went into funding these ICOs, and they go over some more of that history here. Again, some more comparisons between these companies now and the early mid-1990s companies starting on the internet. And that comparison's accurate, but to a much bigger scale with the blockchain. So some other examples here of how awesome this is and how much more efficient and fast and all of that stuff the blockchain can help businesses with. We're going to look at the healthcare system. They're already looking at ways where they can use the security and ownership rights the blockchain allows to increase the efficiency of medical records and how doctors and hospitals and healthcare providers can access those records. You're going to be able to keep your own medical record on a card you could maintain possession of on your smartphone. Anything like that, you will be able to bring your medical record with you now. It'll all be updated in real time between you and the doctor. You're going to be able to grant access to whoever you wish and restrict access to whoever you wish. That's all coming. Ownership of data is going back to the individual. That's across all spectrums of the economy. Facebook and their data mining and selling it, that's big in the news right now. That's a thing of the past. Well, it will be once this new economy gets built out and used, at least. Another good reason to read reports like this, they're going to list some companies in here that are tied into all the money going through government. So Health Nexus is going to be working on some payment solutions in the healthcare field, and they're mentioned in this government report for a reason. They probably have buddies up on Capitol Hill that are going to push their product through first, or use their product as the test case for the official American healthcare solution they're going to recommend. That's good to know. So monitoring and rewarding patients for following clinical recommendations. RoboMed Network is working on that. I don't know if these are any publicly investable options or not, but the names and all that is good to know. Tracking pharmaceuticals along the supply chain. MetaLedger is working on that. And let's see here, identifying specific supply chain problems, such as those associated with the opioid crisis. That's going to be a big deal here as we try to fix that problem. So BlockMedX is working on that one. And one of the big important takeaways here, all these big companies and all these government programs and think tanks and all this, they're working on the blockchain now. They know how efficient it is and how much better it's going to make the data distribution, supply, restriction, and security. United States Department of Health and Human Services announced use of blockchain in health IT and health-related research. So the blockchain boom is here. The crypto boom is here. If there was any chance the government was going to try to shut down cryptocurrency or the blockchain, or if they were going to try to restrict its growth, it wouldn't have a whole chapter in this economic report. Let's see here in New York, LO3 Energy is running a pilot blockchain energy cells initiative, selling energy from solar panels on Brooklyn roofs directly to community members through the smart meters and smart contracts. The Department of Energy has partnered already with BlockCypher to demonstrate how blockchains could facilitate smarter energy grids. This is all happening and being worked on right now. If you think it's a bubble or all these cryptocurrencies and ICOs and all this is a fraud or a fad, that you're sadly mistaken. Here's a big one right here. All the paperwork and data from tracking a product through multiple supply lines over multiple borders. That's a nightmare of paperwork and documentation and all that. IBM and Maersk, those are global massive companies, are working to develop consensus distributed ledger that would allow for all companies and government agencies along the supply chain to record, track, and verify products through the journey. Walmart and other grocers have started testing blockchains for their own supply chains. In testimony before the House Science and Technology Committee, Frank Yanis, Walmart's Vice President of Food Safety, described how tracking E. coli and other contaminated food supplies took companies and regulators weeks of time. So you identify an outbreak of E. coli somewhere, it takes those same people a week to figure out where that food product came from. That's a week of those same contaminated products continuing to be sold and getting people sick, and that's not acceptable. That's ridiculous. So they tested their own blockchain platform to track these food products. And they used sliced packaged mangoes here as the example. So in the old way, it took a time of 7 days to track where those mangoes came from, which factory, which farm. Using the blockchain, 2.2 seconds. From 7 days to 2.2 seconds, they were able to track where those mangoes came from. That's a great example of how much more efficient the system and this technology is compared to the old way of doing things. So right here, Walmart and 10 of the largest grocers in America have formed already, this is past tense, so they have formed a coalition to implement this technology throughout their supply chains. That's going to be a massively valuable blockchain once we know which one that is. There's going to be dozens of similar ones out there doing the same thing. Those are all going to be very interesting investment options once we know what they are and if they're available. They do acknowledge growing pains, misuse, the ability for fraud with all of that. And very interestingly, they are recommending individuals keep their digital assets in private wallets. Off the exchanges, keep them private in your own possession. That's a good recommendation. Doesn't matter if it's coming from the government or from me or from anyone else. Keep your assets in your own possession, keep them safe. So we'll give credit where credit is due. They have some good advice and good information in this report relative to the blockchain and digital assets. Regulatory questions, it's going to be a mess and it's not going to get settled anytime soon. The SEC is going to want their power over it. The CFTC is going to want their power over it, and the American people are going to want full control of it themselves. So this is going to be a legal development and strategy that's going to affect a lot of people. So it's worth watching how the government goes about attempting to regulate and tax cryptocurrency and digital assets. And yep, they have some sections on that: regulation, taxation. Very good information here, and very telling in the way they're approaching cryptocurrency and what they think of it. It's a game changer and they know it. This isn't just regular old Russell here on the internet saying it's a revolutionary technology. That was US lawmakers in their formal economic report to the president saying this is revolutionary technology, and they're not wrong. I'll put a link down to this here so anybody can take a look at it if they want. And we'll leave with the conclusion section. This technology presents evolving challenges and generates new solutions. Blockchain technology essentially stores and transmits data securely in large volume and at high speeds. So far, the technology has proved largely resistant to hacking, and given this feature, developers first applied it to digital currencies. Yet blockchain has many more potential applications, such as portable medical records and securing the critical financial and energy infrastructure that the previous report has identified. Official recommendations. Policymakers and the public should become more familiar with digital currencies and other uses of the blockchain. This is the official recommendation from the United States House of Representatives and Senate. Policymakers and the public should become more familiar with digital currencies and other uses of blockchain technology, which have a wide range of applications in the future and in the present. It's already happening. Regulators should continue to coordinate among each other to guarantee coherent policy frameworks, definitions, and jurisdictions. Policymakers, regulators, and entrepreneurs should continue to work together to ensure developers can deploy these new blockchain technologies quickly and in a manner that protects Americans from fraud, theft, and abuse while ensuring compliance with relevant regulations. Government agencies at all levels should consider and examine new uses for this technology. that could make the government more efficient in performing its functions. And I'll just leave by saying, audit the Federal Reserve, shut the Federal Reserve down, give America an honest supply of money. It's possible. We have the technology to do it. There's no excuse. Everybody, have a wonderful day.